Welcome to Postcards, a brief look at people, places, the arts and curiosities from around the world. On today's program, we visit Hungary's capital of Budapest, a city built on water. Mummies from ancient Egypt are back on display. The avant-garde art of Bloomsbury. A rare medieval prayer book goes on display. And space is set aside for training circus stars of the future. But first up, London's skyline has a new look. The Millennium Wheel, or the London Eye as it's formerly known, finally reached its upright position on the south bank of the River Thames. The giant observation wheel, 450 feet tall, dwarfs other London landmarks and has become a talking point in the capital. Love it or loathe it, no one can deny the raising of the 1,500-ton wheel was a major feat of engineering, but it's not been without its headaches. Over 3,000 years ago, the blue stones of Stonehenge were probably floated upriver from Wales to Salisbury Plain. Similarly, this landmark project used the river as a transport route from Kent as the most logical way of getting all the components together. Like a giant jigsaw puzzle, the arcs of the wheel were pieced together, making for a major spectacle on the river, but that was one of the architect's aims. Architect David Mark said that as London doesn't have an Eiffel Tower or a World Trade Centre, putting the wheel here will give a magnificent viewing platform from which visitors can see the city as they've never seen it before. The wheel was meant to be raised in 3 stages, but the slipping of a major cable socket delayed the process by 4 weeks. While it was a setback, the engineers were soon back on track. The next major step will be to float up the 32 air-conditioned viewing capsules to be attached to the structure. Each can hold 25 people. The completed wheel will rotate continuously. The view promises to delight. Designers say that on a clear day, it will be possible to see 25 miles to the horizon and take in 7 countries. In another part of London, the new millennium saw a shift from the 40-year-old traditional nativity scene at Trafalgar Square. A new sculpture was commissioned by a nearby parish local church to mark the religious millennium, 2,000 years since the birth of Jesus Christ. Entitled In the Beginning, the sculpture arrived at Trafalgar Square wrapped in swaddling cloth, and where, with the help of the sculptor and local children, it was slowly revealed. Beneath, lying delicately on top of 1.5 metres of stone, was a tiny life-size stone carving of a baby. Its umbilical cord still attached, the infant represents the birth of Christ. The stone carving, the work of Mike Chapman, was commissioned by St Martin-in-the-Fields Church to create an image that was simple yet powerful. Chapman said a real baby, naked and ordinary, accentuating the tininess and frailty of a newborn, was the best way to symbolise the event. During 1999, 107-year-olds were asked what the millennium was all about. Only one said Jesus. The church felt the image of baby Jesus was one way of recounting the tale of how Jesus came to earth as a baby in Bethlehem. Mike Chapman modelled the infant on baby Tobias, the son of one of his art students. The child Christ was carved out of a 4.5-ton block of Portland stone. The stone itself is 135 million years old. The sculpture will be moved to St Martin-in-the-Fields Church to be put on permanent display for future generations. The grand buildings of Budapest hug the banks of the Danube. Hungary's capital is in fact a city built on water. It looks like an imperial palace, but these are the Széchenyi baths, just one of over 20 mineral water baths around the city, where locals and visitors alike can come and soothe away their aches and pains, or just relax with friends in the naturally warmed spa water. It's a centuries-old tradition. And at the nearby Rudis Baths, it's one being brought bang up to date. On a late summer night, the young and adventurous of Budapest gather to let their hair down and enjoy some rhythmic bopping and splashing. The Roman-style bath took on a psychedelic air as British disc jockeys played a variety of ambient and up-tempo pop music for this aquatic nightclub. It was a good turnout, and once the revellers have had their fill of dancing, there was a quieter jacuzzi-style pool to float around in or sit back and watch silent movies. Very clean and probably a bit wrinkled, the disco bathers emerged in the early hours of Sunday morning, tired but seemingly keen for more. Judging from its debut reception, this UK-Hungary musical link-up could be set for a re-release very soon. An epitaph to an ancient civilization. After thousands of years and on the other side of the world, the mysterious culture of ancient Egypt continues to intoxicate and intrigue. This mummy case of the priestess Henetmate is the pride of the new Roxy Walker Galleries of Egyptian funerary archaeology. After 6 months in storage, the most popular exhibits, the mummies, are back. The display replaces the old mummy gallery, which hadn't changed in over a century. The major overhaul, which incorporates the embalmed, coffins, funerary statuettes, amulets and books of the dead, also reflects the current state of research on what is a perennially fascinating subject. The Egyptian team used the storage period for intensive research on the collection. Many of the mummies were admitted as private patients to local hospitals, including the Royal Ear, Nose and Throat, where X-rays and scans revealed a wealth of information. The gilded mummy case of Artemidorus, dating from the 2nd century, is deceiving. His calm, grave face hides a violent truth. A scan revealed he was killed by a blow to the head. The findings also revealed the pharaoh suffered from arthritis, and the combination of coarse stone-ground grain in the diet and blown sand meant most people who reached middle age had teeth worn down to the stumps. The old gallery was one of many rooms said to be haunted. One coffin panel was reportedly cursed and associated with several mysterious deaths before it was removed from the museum by its owner. Both ended up on the seabed after going down with the Titanic. Many of the artefacts in the exhibition had been in storage for years. Some were requiring repairs, others were merely in need of a good clean. This is where the museum's conservation department comes into its own. These mummified animals, a baboon and crocodile, were offerings to the gods Hapi and Sobe. Since the museum's foundation in 1753, conservation has been an integral component. In 1975, the museum administrators decided to create a separate department, drawing together the conservators from the various antiquity departments and the conservator scientists from the research laboratories. Over 8,000 items are repaired each year, with pieces arriving daily from archaeological digs across the country. Due to the sheer abundance of material, most of the items are restored simply for storage purposes. These Roman bowls, found in Farnham in Surrey and dating from between the 1st and 4th centuries, are typical items. Many of the items are a microcosm of historical restoration techniques. Over the years, conservators have incorporated a number of techniques and materials, including sealing wax, cork, plaster of Paris, even acids and bleach to repair and clean items. The painstaking work requires a special kind of person. This wall drawing, taken from the ruins at Pompeii in Italy, is flaking. The restoration work will take up to 5 weeks to complete. Restorers need infinite patience, skill with their hands, and a very good sense of colour. The crowning glory of the Conservation Department is the new Hirayama Gallery, created in the vaults of an old bank. Acquired by the museum, the building is perfect for restoration techniques due to the natural light coming from near the ceiling. Japanese and Chinese art undergoes conservation in the room via both ancient and modern techniques. Paper is dampened and attached to scrolls and wall hangings to protect them as they are rolled and unrolled for exhibitions. However, the museum's new additions do not draw attention away from the older sections, such as the drawing and reading room, which underwent a major refurbishment in 1998. The collection contains over 3 million items, even including 2 million cigarette cards, a recent bequest. A series of drawings by brothers Jake and Dinos Chapman, inspired by Spanish painter Francisco Goya, are another recent addition. However, its undoubted highlight is the collection of art masters. Works by Rembrandt, Picasso, Dürer and Van Gogh are the most widely viewed drawings in the museum. It's boom time for Bloomsbury Art. This is the first major group exhibition by the Bloomsbury painters ever to be held. Much has been written about the artists, writers and intellectuals associated with this tiny area. The group had no manifesto or central set of beliefs. Friendship, love affairs, marriage, family and children bound a few families who lived in Bloomsbury. It was a highly productive association. 3 Bloomsbury artists, Roger Fry, Duncan Grant and Vanessa Bell, are at the core of this exhibition. Bloomsbury was as avant-garde as you could get for that brief moment before the Great War. After the fighting, their art, along with the rest of Europe, returned to a more classical style. The exhibition also shows furniture and ceramics from the Omega Workshops, a design company founded by the 3 Bloomsbury artists. The pottery, based on French peasant pottery, and the furniture still look modern today. No one will ever know about the sweat and tears split coaxing this gold dust from the Californian goldfields last century. But this particular cache has an even more romantic past. It has graced the floor of the Atlantic Ocean for 130 years, a sunken treasure from the ill-fated SS Central America. A hurricane overwhelmed the vessel as it steamed to New York from San Francisco. With the loss of 425 passengers, it was America's worst peacetime disaster at sea. Its rich cargo of gold dust, nuggets, coins and ingots was intended to bail out the banks of New York, which were reeling from a rush following the failure of the Ohio Life Insurance and Trust Company. In the month prior to the ship's sinking, the banks had paid out over a third of their gold. So not only was the human loss dreadful, but also the loss of specie had a terrible adverse effect on the American economy at the time. 8% of the cargo was being offered for sale by Sotheby's. It was awarded to the descendant firms of the original underwriters who paid out on the cargo when it sank in 1857. This shining $20 gold coin is a rare example of the coin struck by the US government as a direct result of the discovery of California gold. It was the largest and a standard at the time. The coins were packaged brand new at the mint in wooden boxes and were being shipped across to New York when the ship went down in 1857. Over the course of 130 years, the Central America lay a mile and a half beneath the Atlantic's waves. The wood rotted away, and when the coins were discovered, they were still standing in their original stacks, accounting for their absolutely pristine condition, as good as the day they were made. The appearance at auction of these gold bars is unprecedented. Made from melted down gold dust and nuggets brought in by prospectors and purchasers, the ingots were assayed and stamped with their weight and value for shipment. Few people have ever seen them, as their lifespan was only a couple of months in ingot form. With its mint-condition artefacts from a momentous period in American history, the cargo is the single most important treasure ever to come to auction. Its estimated total value exceeds $16 million US. Elsewhere at Sotheby's, experts were thrilled at another recent discovery, one of the rarest medieval manuscripts in existence. Medieval prayer books, known as Books of Hours, are relatively commonplace, but the emergence of an illuminated manuscript made for one of the greatest royal art patrons of the Middle Ages amazed Sotheby's specialist Christopher Hamill. The book was probably made for the most prominent of all medieval book collectors, the Duke de Berry, brother and then uncle of the King of France. Its 213 leaves contain 19 illuminated borders and 16 full-page miniatures, created by one of the great manuscript artists of the early 15th century, whose work is all too rare. The book probably passed by descent into the Royal Library of Savoy in Turin before being sold to an American family last century. Since then, it's been sitting on a bookshelf just waiting to be discovered. A total solar eclipse, 2 minutes of breathtaking beauty. For the crowds who gathered beneath the moon's shadow in southwest England, Cornwall was the place to be. To mark the historic occasion, the county's best-known art gallery, the Tate at St Ives, is staging a unique exhibition of new and older works in a project called As Dark as Light. As Dark as Light begins with a display of paintings by well-known artists like Sun and Moon by Barbara Hepworth, who herself lived in the Cornish village for many years. And Turner's Sunrise with Boat Between Two Headlands. Japanese artist Yuko Shiraishi is one of several contemporary artists marking the eclipse with new work. A series of three-dimensional canvases emerge from the gallery's curved wall, protruding in a diminishing sequence of size and depth. On a lower level, echoing the sea outside, different shades of blue create a band of shifting colours. The contrast between dark and light is explored in two installations by Georgian artist Gia Edzveradze. A chessboard of rotting carrots and text combined with disturbing video installations represent decay and struggle. The glaringly light space next door, complete with sprouting turf to represent salvation and renewal, continues the theme of life as a game of chess, a constant outwitting of opponents. And on the roof of the gallery, local artist Tamsin Pender has used the sun, sky and sea as a backdrop to an installation made from the twine and rope, the materials of sailing and fishing. Here the line of totality is a dark piece of thread drawn rapidly across the face of the earth, the crowning glory of an exhibition marking Cornwall's role in one of nature's most spectacular events. It may be an unlikely setting, but hidden in the back streets, a disused power station has become the home of the modern British circus. The contemporary circus-going audience now demands a lot more than those who may have been content with a bearded lady and the human cannonball of a century ago. Today it's more like a carnival, theatre and dance with surprising feats of physicality and athleticism. Circus Space is the training ground of the future generation of circus stars. It's housed in the generating and the combustion chambers of this 102-year-old Shoreditch electricity station. It's being called the powerhouse of Britain's contemporary circus, providing a full range of educational facilities, along with practice and rehearsal time for performers and companies. Circus Space has taken the performance genre into the higher education sector, giving it a status which has already been fought for by dance, drama and the media. Circus Space has been commissioned to train 90 performers to be part of the Millennium Dome show. The training is intensive indeed, from 8 in the morning until 7 at night. The haunting face of Anthony Perkins, star of Psycho, one of Alfred Hitchcock's most frightening masterpieces. The 1950s film remains as popular with audiences today as it did more than 40 years ago, a testament to the undisputed genius of the thriller genre. To celebrate the centenary of his birth, a plaque was unveiled at the director's pre-war London home by his daughter Patricia. Hitchcock and his wife Alma Revel lived at the Cromwell Road flat for 13 years while he was working at Islington Studios. Hitchcock, famous for his cameo appearances in his films, would tantalise fans by materialising in a minor role, often as an inconspicuous passerby. However, as a director, he was far from inconspicuous. After relocating to the United States in 1939, he went on to become one of the most successful directors of all time. And that's all for today. Join us again next time for a postcard look at people, places, the arts and curiosities.